Hello, 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 and welcome to another exciting circuit stream workshop and webinar. My name is Stefan. I'm going to be your moderator here today. Before I do continue on, though, I would love to know from everyone who is signed on currently, can you hear me and see me? Quick AV audio check. I see Saleh Ali, Jay, Alex, Sebastian, Ryan, John, Yeses, Adam, Melody, Hilton, Randy, Hunter, Derek. Awesome. Great that you can all hear me and see me. I would hate to continue on without, no one being able to follow along with what I'm saying. But thank you, Fiora, Vitor, Del Gratias. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. Louise, great seeing you joining us here today. Kathleen, awesome. Thank you, Jay. So, we've got an exciting workshop and webinar here at Circuit Stream. Today, we'll be covering developing indie games with our special guest, Stephen from Isto. Now, I would love to know, and this is a question I ask on all of our workshops and webinars, where is everyone tuning in from today? So I myself am tuning in and presenting from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Stephen is also joining us from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. But I do see Sebastian's from Toronto, Saleh, Saudi Arabia, Toronto, Seattle, Chicago, Turkey, Winnipeg, Germany, Tennessee, Vancouver, Arkansas, the UK, Gavin, welcome. California, another one from San Jose. Quite a few UK folks, but very international audience. And that's why I love hosting these workshops and webinars. People from all over the world joining us to learn more from experts and industry professionals, instructors, and so many people that we invite joining us here at Circuit Stream. Now, a few little housekeeping items before I do continue on. As you all see to the right of the screen there is a chat box. So feel free to chat amongst yourselves. Toss in your LinkedIn profiles if you'd like. Salman, I see Salman says no sound. I'm just going to respond to him in the chat here. At Salman, please refresh your screen. This tends to help. Perfect. Hopefully we can figure that out for Salman there. But there is that chat box to the right of your screen. Chat amongst yourselves. Toss in your LinkedIn profiles if you would like to connect and network with other folks there. Now, beside the chat tab, so at the bottom, unless it's different for others, it should be the same. At the bottom, there's a little kind of navigation panel. There's the chat one to the right. Beside the chat tab, there's a questions tab. So if you have any questions for myself, the circuit stream behind stage, for Stephen throughout the presentation at the end in the Q&A, please toss your questions into the questions tab. This helps us track what hasn't been answered. It doesn't get lost in the chat. So please do put your questions in the questions tab. Now, beside the questions tab, there is a polls tab as well. Now, we're going to be tossing in polls to ask you some questions about where you're coming from, your experience with certain things, really to help tailor the conversation that we have here today. Now, I hope that makes sense. If anyone has any questions, feel free to toss them into the questions tab. Give me a shout out in the chat if you have anything you want to mention. But the questions tab is next gen. Love seeing this setup. Awesome, Ian. Great that you're enjoying that there. But without further ado, let's continue on again. Super special webinar here today, developing indie games with Stephen. Stephen is the founder of the indie games dev studio, Isto Inc. And he's going to be sharing his insights and experience on starting a company, building games, and anything else that you would like to know from Stephen today. Well, let's continue on. Who am I? Well, my name is Stefan Lacina. I lead partnerships here at Circuit Stream. And a little bit about myself, I have several years of experience in the tech industry, working with travel IT companies, learning management system providers, ERP and business integration platforms, and now in the beautiful world of real-time 3D, game development, design, virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. Now, interesting fact about myself, I was a member of Water Polo Canada. I trained with the 2008 Beijing Olympic team. Never went to the Olympics. I think I was only like 14, 15 years old at the time. But I did put those skills to use by saving a drowning couple in Mexico one time when lifeguards weren't there to help out. Now, if you've heard of water polo before, let me know in the chat. Not a lot of people have, but looks like Ali played water polo myself for a few years. My man, it's rare to find people who are familiar with it, but great to see Ali. Now, today it's an honor and a pleasure to have Stephen from Isto Inc. join us. He's the founder of the company. He himself has been doing computer science work since 2008. He used to work at Microsoft as a program manager, and since then has started Isto Inc., a video game company. And he's going to tell you more about how he went about that, what things they have created and worked on, and sharing more about his game as well. So what does the agenda here look like today? Well, first of all, this is all recorded. So for those of you who are tuning in from abroad, as we saw in the chat here, if you need to go have dinner, if you need to go to bed, if you're waking up in the morning and have to get ready for work or some other things in life, don't worry. We're going to send you this recording to work with afterwards by email, and it will be available on our website as well. But today, I'm going to introduce you to Circus Stream. For those of you who are new to Circus Stream, what do we do and who we are? Then we'll dive into some courses and trainings for those of you who are interested in learning more about creating these experiences yourself and then creating your own game studio and company in the future, right? With the skills that you kind of require to be able to develop design experiences that Stephen will be showing us. Then I'm going to invite Stephen onto the stage for about 30 to 45 minutes where he's going to dive into developing indie games, how we went about starting up Isto Inc. and everything else there. And when Stephen's done, I'll rejoin, wrap things up, and then we'll open it up for an in-depth Q&A session at the very end. So today's going to last about an hour and a half at most, if I would say. Really depends on the Q&A session we have at the end there. So a little bit about Circus Stream, who we are. Well, Circus Stream is a leader in 3D education. We started in 2015 when we noticed the gap in helping people develop and design VR, AR, and game development experiences. And since then, we've reached over 45,000 learners around the world how to develop and design these experiences themselves. And our focus has always been on learning, training, a team of instructors and developers, designers here to help you learn the skills you need to go and do this yourself afterwards. And our instructors maintain the highest level of certifications available from expert programmers, professional programmers, and Circus Stream itself is a Unity authorized training partner as well. Now, Circus Stream is one of the only educational providers offering micro-credentials and certifications from XR developer and designers with Unity to Unity's own certified associate programmer, which we helped create alongside Unity themselves. Now, we've reached so many people, as I mentioned, 45,000 learners since 2015 from large organizations such as Apple, Microsoft, Walmart, Deloitte, Raytheon, VMware, the US Navy, various universities, right down to the individual learner like some of you who are tuning in here today. And since we've been really working with enterprises and individuals, we want to continue growing, educational opportunities across the world. And that's why we started partnering with universities across North America, from Reno, U of T, UBC, Syracuse University, the University of California, Riverside, and San Diego. And if you are in these local areas, you're able to take our programs and courses through those universities to get a certificate from the university alongside a certificate from Circuit Stream. Now, where have our learners gone? Well, we've had the pleasure to teach people from all walks of life. And for the last 3 consecutive years, we've had students join Oculus's Launchpad program to continue working on projects, building on the skills they learned at Circuit Stream, and at times receiving funding for the projects and development work that they're working on. And we've helped people land roles at Bungie, such as Monday, at EA Electronic Arts, such as Han Wu, and even those who moved into XR development and mixed reality work at Microsoft as well. Now, how have we done this? Well, 3 main programs and courses that I'm quickly touching up on, and then we'll move on. For those who are interested in virtual reality and augmented reality development, we have an XR development with Unity course, live and online, 10 weeks long, beginner-friendly, instructor-led, all virtual. Now, for those who are designers looking to get into the field of 3D, we have our XR interaction design and prototyping for XR course. This is more so for the designers out there who don't want to dive into the coding and technical aspects of it. This is UX, storyboarding, prototyping. This is the course for you. 10 weeks as well, live and online, instructor-led. And for those who want to be a Unity professional, such as Stephen here today, the Unity Developer Bootcamp is the one to look at. This is career-focused, career support throughout 24 weeks long, diving into everything Unity, from VR, AR, game development, design, art, you name it, everything Unity. That's the course that you want to take a peek at. Now, I'm going to toss in a poll here. So for those of you who are tuned in, please go to the polls tab. I'm going to ask you all on a scale of 0 to 10, how much experience do you have with Unity? 0 being I've never heard of Unity before. What's Unity, Steph? To 10, I'm the Chuck Norris, the Jedi Master of Unity. I created Unity. So let me know in the polls. I'm going to check out the results here. We've got quite a few beginners, 1s, 2s, 3s, but we do have some advanced folks here as well. We've got some 7s, 8s, quite a few 5s and 6s. No 9s and 10s yet, but that's good. Always room to grow and learn more. I never give myself a 10 out of 10. That's just ridiculous. But good to know. Good to know there. So for those of you who said, 1, 2, maybe a 3, what is Unity? Well, Unity is a free 3D development engine for building games, simulations, and experiences. It's the easiest way to begin making apps, games, and these experiences from the comfort of your own home. Now that I've kind of touched up a little bit about Circuit Stream, who we are, what we do, Unity, for those of you who might be completely new to Unity, what are you all going to learn here today? Well, today we're going to invite Stephen on stage to talk more about how he started the small game studio Isto. Then we're going to dive into what the day-to-day looks like for a game designer and developer, practical advice for anyone who's thinking of creating their own indie game, and the basics of planning, program management, and production practices for game development. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. I would love to invite Stephen onto the stage here. Again, it's a pleasure and an honor to have Stephen join us. Stephen, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in.
Can you hear me okay? Is everything working?
Test all 1, 2. Good. Yep, I can hear you well. Let's see the chat. Let's see what the chat's saying here. Chat, can you hear Stephen? Kathleen's yippee, welcome. We've got yeps, yeses, all
thumbs
good.
Up, nice.
Money. Beautiful, awesome. Well, hey, Stephen, feel free to take it away for the audience here. You're in great hands. Stephen's going to take about 30 minutes, 40 minutes to share his insights, expertise, and experiences. Stephen, I'm going to be backstage. If you need anything, give me a shout. I may pop in if I see something, but you're all in great hands. Thanks again, Stephen, for joining us. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here.
Thank you, guys. Let's get the show on the road. Hi, everybody. Today, I'm going to teach you how to go from making a six-figure salary job up to quitting your job, moving into your parents' basement, and making video games. And you may be like Stephen. There's surely no magic bullet to quitting your job. You can't just go up and be like, hey, I'm quitting my job. Texting your parents, being like, hey, mom and dad, I want to move in. And then being like, what are you talking about? You're a grown-ass adult. You can't do that. And I may be like, well, I'm already moving home, so it's happening, and then starting a video game company. But today, I'm going to show you how I did that. I'm also going to show you how I convinced an Olympian to join my team to make video games, how we made a #1 game on the Google Play Store for an entire week across the world, and how we started a YouTube channel with over 2 million views. And at the very end, if you stick around, I'm going to tell you why none of that matters even a little bit. My name is Stephen. I'm the founder of Isto Inc, and we make video games. Now, before I get started, I just wanted to ask the moderators to do a poll. I'm going to kind of wing it a little bit, depending on your level of experience. So I just want to know where you are in life in terms of game development. So I know they're going to put a poll in the chat. Oh, they already got it up. Look at how fast they are. Where you are in your stage of life. And like, this is just a relative approximation. Obviously, if you're doing something else, it's not really a big deal. If you're lower than high school or, doing something else, it's really not a big deal. I just kind of want to get a general sense for where everyone is, because obviously if you're in high school, I'm not going to go into the minute details of accounting. And if you're working, I'm also not going to go into the minor details of accounting because it's boring, and we're not going to do that. Okay. One other thing while we're getting the votes in, I have to apologize. I've had a terrible cough. So I may lose my voice halfway through, and sometimes I may be whispering just to save my voice so we can get all the way through it, or I'm going to be obnoxiously drinking tea. So if I go muted, just know it's because of my cough. Okay, good. So a lot of you guys are working. A lot of you guys are in university. Most of you guys are not in high school or freelance or professional game developers. No professional game developers. Okay. This is good. Give it about 2 more seconds, and then we'll move forward. Just checking. I'm also going to try and read the chat a little bit, but my multitasking abilities are not as refined as Stefan's, apparently. Okay, we're moving forward. Most of you guys are working. A lot of you guys are in university. So I'm going to try and tailor a little bit of my stories to that. I'm not going to talk about too much about pre-high school. So let's start in university. I think the biggest thing is we want to start at the beginning, not the whole beginning, but university. So for me, I was in computer science. And there was 2 things happening at the same time. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I'm sure a lot of people have been in the same boat. And I think I was in my second last year of university when they had the festival, the career festival. I think they call it career festival. Career day. Big companies come. They set it up in the gymnasium at the university. You can walk around and give your resume to all the companies to find a job. And me, not thinking anything of it, a bunch of friends were going to apply at the big boy company, Microsoft. They were there. I printed off a resume, not thinking anything of it. And I went and applied. And wouldn't you know it, I happen to have good grades. I happen to be, trying hard in school. And even though I just winged it, I applied. And guess what? I got rejected. What were you expecting? You can't just apply without thinking about it and try and get a job. So I got rejected. But that's fine, because the next year, I sort of thought about it a little bit more and tailored my resume and got some work experience and really tried and reapplied. This was in January. January was a very important time in my life because I was in my final year of university taking the one course I'd always wanted to take, the video game course. Computer Science 585, numbers don't really matter, but it's a capstone project, 4 months long, where you build a video game the entire time. No lectures, no nothing, just building a video game in a group project. And here's the thing about group projects. There's always that one guy that just sucks. And we did not have that. The other group did. It was awesome. We ended up having an awesome project. I'm going to share my screen. So I was told that you can hear, even if I change the volume, you can hear the volume. So I'm going to play for a couple seconds, and then I'm going to swap over.
Good luck, Agent. Oh no! The security system is trying to shut down the escape connection. If I don't reroute you, we could lose the intel. I need to establish an encryption attack to break through the shutdown system. You're going to have to gather more IP packets in order for me to authenticate the encryption.
How many do you need?
Well, it depends on the security system's cryptographic capabilities. It looks as though the system has entered lockdown mode, so we're probably going to need a lot of packets. And they...
Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen so you don't have to hear both the video and my voice. You guys can see here? Okay. Quality is a little bit lower, but that's okay. I'm just going to talk over this while this plays. So we took the video game course, and it was awesome. So you have to build a game without an engine, and it has to be a driving game. 4 months, you learn everything from car physics to driving and working with a group, which is not really a great scenario if you have a terrible group member, which the other group did. And there was one particular guy in the other group, who we won't name, who just sucked. And there was another guy in the group who was carrying everything. The bad group member actually decided at the end of the project, 3 weeks before everything is due, that he just wasn't interested in video games anymore and dipped. It was crazy. The one group member who carried everybody was Kyle. Let me introduce you to Kyle. Let me see here. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we have more media. Sorry for the back and forth. Oh, baby. Here. So this is Kyle Nissen, a former Olympian who competed in aerials in the Torino Olympics in 2006 and the Vancouver Olympics in 2010. I know that one because it was in Canada. He retired from the Vancouver Olympics and went in computer science. We happen to be in the same class, even though we had different ages. And I saw him just completely carry the living hell out of the other group, and we sort of bonded over his suffering. We had an awesome project. It was fantastic. That same year, about a week after we graduated, we decided to start making a game. So it was pretty instant that we had wanted to make games, but not really sure what we were going to do because I had reapplied at Microsoft and gotten the job. And if you don't know, and I'm not sure where you guys work, but the interview process is absolutely bananas for Microsoft, especially as a young university student without having to apply or without the experience of having applied at these big companies. They have 4 rounds of interviews. The first one happens when you drop off the resume. They don't tell you, but you go in, you drop off your resume, and they actually ask you very casual questions under the guise that they're actually trying to filter you out to see if you're good. The second one, they fly a team out many weeks later to have a large interview process at the campus. So they funnel through a lot of people. A lot of people get the interviews because it's specifically for the university. They pick a small section of candidates to fly out. Oh, I got to stop sharing my screen. Thank you for that. Let me close this bad boy. They fly you out to Microsoft, which is in Seattle most of the time. And there was only a small group of us who were going. So I got past the first stages. Obviously, I got the job. It was a spoiler alert. Ooh. They flew me out to Seattle, and then they have a series of interviews, 5 hours, each 1 hour long, back to back. And I don't know why they do this, but they pack you in this room at the very beginning with all the other candidates. It's just like this waiting room of like nervous, sweaty university kids. All sitting, some of them are sitting in suits, and you're like, why are you sitting in a suit? Because they tell you not to wear a suit. So everyone's like freaking out because you've never worked a professional job before. And then they ship you out to all the different departments and you do back-to-back interviews. Luckily, I'm a good talker. I don't know if you get that from me, but I managed to sweet talk my way into a job, and they offered me a job to relocate in Seattle. So I was starting in September. We graduated in April. Kyle and I are sitting in Kyle's basement talking about doing a summer project. Easy peasy, nothing to it. 4 months. We'd already gone through university. I'd been at school for a long time. We had learned about scoping down projects to make sure it was good. It was going to be easy, nothing to it. And of course, it took us 4 years. This is Disjoint. Let me share my screen one more time. Disjoint, where are you? I got to pull it up. There we go.
Let's do this.
I'll let this run. Here we go.
Oh, I kind of get it. You got to rotate it around the triangle.
Use your logic. Oh.
Oh, they gotta be friends. They gotta help each other. Ah, there we go. Okay. Okay, this guy's gotta come up here. Help this little fella out.
That one's still left alone. You have to grab it. That one has to come down first.
Oh, but only about that point. Oh. So, I'm just going to see what this does. Oh,
How's this even possible if it's being hairy on both sides? Oh.
Ooh, so wait, when I link up... Kapow!
Okay, little teaser at the end. So that was Disjoint. It doesn't look like a 4-year project, but here's the thing. When you're learning, things take longer, and there's challenges with life. You're always not going to be, you're not able to compare yourself to other people in their other situations. So at Microsoft, I was working a full-time job. I would go home, we'd work on Disjoint. Kyle, on the other hand, was working halfway across the world, which makes it kind of challenging. I know I'm swapping between all these different devices, so it's a little disjointed. Okay, here we go. So I was here and Kyle was here, which makes it kind of hard. And I'm no geography expert, but if you do the minor calculations, the distance between the two places I'm showing you on Earth is pretty far. Kyle had got a job at a video game company, at a consulting company, and somewhere in between the project, obviously 4 years is a long time, he got hired as a coach for the Australian women's national aerials ski team in Finland. Quite the mouthful, a little confusing. When you think about it, how the hell are they going to do aerials in Australia? There's no snow. So they moved to Finland. It kind of makes sense. It's a little crazy. But the point is, it was tough to work with somebody halfway across the world living in different time zones. He was in like this no-name resort with terrible internet. So working was a pain in the ass. So it was definitely a challenge. But we got it done. I actually had this revelation while we were working on Disjoint. I was sort of in that last year before the game came out. I'd learned a ton at Microsoft. It was very, very helpful for me to grow as a person, as a professional. And I sort of realized that as I was working at Microsoft during my days, I would spend most of it thinking about making a video game. And I came to that conclusion that, man, maybe I should be making video games. Because if I'm spending my whole day at a job that is considered fantastic, and to this day, I loved working at Microsoft. If I had to pick another job, I would go back. I had a fantastic manager. I had a really interesting project. In fact, I can play this for a little bit of context. This was the first video I ever made. The first time being in front of the camera.
Show you how to get started with
Obviously, we're
Windows
not
10
going to watch the
IoT
whole 14
and
minutes.
the Raspberry Pi 3.
And
So let's jump right in and talk
that's
about
not
equipment.
very fun.
The first
and
thing
my
you're gonna
delivery
need
is not
is
great.
the Raspberry Pi 3. You're also going to need a
I'm just going to
5
skip
volt
ahead. We're just going to pause. Or maybe not on that frame. That's not a good frame to pause on. Okay. Let me just scooch on ahead here. Okay. Just for a little bit of context, this has nothing to do with video games. We worked on the Raspberry Pi. Windows went onto the Raspberry Pi. I was building the out-of-box experience for the Raspberry Pi, getting set up, all that stuff. It has nothing to do with video games, but what it does do is it taught me how to manage a team, how to organize a project, how to organize deliverables and schedules and timelines. Very, very useful skills that I have applied to my job today. But I was spending a lot of time thinking about video games. In fact, I was spending most of the time thinking about video games, so I decided to quit. Move back home from Seattle to Calgary, where Stefan also lives. And I convinced Kyle to get on board. So we finished Disjoint. That last year, I did a little bit of traveling, but honestly, I'm sorry, there's a lot of swap in here. Share screen. Here we go. We finished the game and released it on the store. For the first week, we had a viral hit on Reddit. It had over 3 million views on a one post. It was crazy. We weren't expecting it. Things went absolutely bananas. And for 1 week, we were the #1 paid app on the Google Play Store, which sounds great, but financially actually wasn't that crazy when you understand the mobile market. Turns out all the money goes to free-to-play games. Paid games don't do that great. But what it did do is it gave us the confidence to realize that we could do this professionally. This was a project that we had kind of done in our free time. This was the first time we'd worked in Unity. A lot of the mistakes we made were beginner mistakes, which is okay, which is totally fine. As you go on in your journey of life, you're going to get better. That's how it works. And so we had a hard sit down and we were like, if we did this for real, if we quit our jobs, if we really, really tried, could we make this work? And my answer to that was yes. And so we had 881 5-star reviews, which is dope. It didn't pay the bills, to be perfectly honest. I think I calculated it out. It ended up being like $1 an hour in terms of wage. So could have worked at McDonald's and got a way better salary. Just putting it out there for anybody who thinks this is going to be easy. And I don't want to, sugarcoat anything. Even having a success in the mobile game store like this does not pay the bills unless you really try, unless you're really committed. So it's not an easy road, but that's okay. Now, I just want to recap sort of the disjoint journey in terms of growth, because that to me is a little bit more important than the actual, end result. So a little bit about me in terms of the dynamic of the team. Obviously, when there's only 2 of you, you have to do a lot. I did all the art, I did a lot of the programming, and I did a lot of the game design. So this is kind of, we had a story in the game. I, for whatever sadistic reason, decided to make the whole story rhyme. It was brutal to write. It's really easy to read, so it paid off in the end. But dear God, I remember trying to write it for the first time and remembering how smug and happy I felt after dropping out of English class in university, being like, I'm never going to use this. And then the one class that I actually did drop out of, I needed a lot. There's more to Disjoint than just what you saw in the video. And this is the thing I'm most proud of, is the game design aspect of this, the twist. So the game is about rolling triangles around, but the twist is that you can transfer from 3D to 2D and from 2D to 3D. Let me explain. It's a bit of a mind bender. So we are currently in 2D mode. You can see my mouse here. There's multiple triangles on the screen that look like cubes. So when you hit this sweet button that says 3D, boom, everything turns into cubes. But there's a twist. If you roll the triangles around, you can actually hide triangles because of the perspective, which makes it a crazy illusion game, because if you go back and forth between 2D and 3D, you can destroy triangles. So you can start with a puzzle that requires 12 triangles and finish the puzzle with 10 triangles. Or you can, create triangles, destroy triangles. What a mind-bending experience. It was very fun. I felt very good about it. The funny thing is we thought about this the first day, which is nuts. The rest of it was just slogging through code and learning how to use Unity, blood, sweat, and tears. We had a map. It was beautiful. This was my first foray into being like a professional artist, even though I'd never really done art before. It was a great challenge. We learned a lot. But the thing I think outside of this particular mechanic that I'm most proud of is the progression, my growth. And I find when I'm, building games and, going along this journey of life, the best thing to focus on is your growth. So up here is the first drawing I did for this particular game. And then you can see my evolution as an artist. So I didn't really know about composition and lighting and, structure and flow. And this is designing it for mobile. So it's tougher because you're swiping left and right on our story. I'm starting to add waves and they look like mountains, which is kind of embarrassing because they need to look like waves. Eventually kind of figured out how to make it look like waves. And then the final one, I'm very proud of this one. It's a little small to see, but it looks really good in comparison to this one. So my growth as an artist over Disjoint gave me the confidence to move into the next project, which was Atrio. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go.
Growing a mushroom in Atrio is easy. All you need is fertilizer and water, and getting fertilizer is easy. All you need to do is use your trap to launch a mini deer into the poop pen with the 10 other mini deer you've captured, launch the poo into the factory, dump the fertilizer onto your mushroom, and then let it grow. But you don't want to pick them because you're lazy. But don't worry, automating picking is easy. All you need to do is venture into the dark, find a tornado, and respawn, feed it a bomb because a captured tornado will pluck the mushrooms for you, and now you don't have to collect anything, and all you have left to do is to replant them. But you don't want to replant them because you're lazy. But don't worry, automating replanting is easy. All you need to do is venture into the dark and find the bees and and then put them to sleep because when you rehome them, they will fly from box to box, grabbing spores and replanting the empty ones, and now your mushrooms will grow all on their own, and all you have left to do is stay alive. But don't worry, staying alive is easy. All you need to do is build a light bulb line so you can harvest ore in the dark, and then build an assembly line to move the ore back to base and combine them into your factories, and build walls and gates to defend your base, while at the same time finding a way to replace your dying battery. But don't worry, replacing your battery is easy. All you need to do is venture into the dark and avoid dying to the exploding boxes, the pushbacks, the giant screaming spiders, pass through the blood lake, harvest your own body, pet a deer, sacrifice yourself in exchange for a battery, get resurrected, replace your battery, refuel your ever-expanding base, and then take a well-deserved break to collect your delicious, delicious mushrooms. And like I said, growing mushrooms is easy.
Awesome. So I'm very proud of that trailer. But what's important, and the reason I'm showing you that is, again, the progression. Let me share my screen one more time. Is your journey, especially for those who haven't done it, is going to be a long, arduous one where you're going to really grow. You can see in 2014, this is my first drawing of a character. Obviously not as impressive as maybe the trailer I just showed you, but that's okay. You're going to get better if you stick with it. And that's really, really important. That's super important to me. Now, I'm going to kind of open it up a little bit and try and be more interactive with the chat, because that's kind of the story of Isto Inc. And a lot of this now is going to be questions about the day-to-day and how we operate. And then I'm going to give a little bit of advice. I typically don't give a lot of generic advice, but I have one piece of advice, and I've kind of been alluding to it a little bit. But let's talk about Atrio. Let's talk about how we've gotten here and what we're doing in this project. The big thing is we started Atrio in 2018. It's been 4 years, a very long journey. And I've taken a lot of those skills and we've gotten better over time. There are now 3 of us. So we have increased by 150%, which really is only one person, but that's okay. I like to use the numbers to make us look good. Now, they asked me to talk about my day-to-day, and these are the 3 people in the team. And I have a question for you. What do you think the split between a 3-person team making an automation game looks like in terms of categories of work that they're doing, from programming to art to game design to marketing? How much of that gets distributed amongst the team? Now, that's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer that because I want to get through this presentation. Let's start with Francois. Francois lives in Quebec, and he is a programmer. He does nothing but program all day, every day. He specifically does gameplay programming. He does a lot of, right now he's working on adding controller support, but we do a lot of debugging and quality assurance and testing and all that fun stuff that, everybody likes to do. Next up is Kyle. Kyle is our senior lead. Obviously, he's been working together with me for over 8 years. Very experienced guy, huge variety of talent, a breadth of skills from presentation skills to, leading a team, everything. So naturally what he does is programming. That's right. He just programs all day, every day, which means this is my day, everything. So obviously an automation game, if you haven't played them, something like Factorio, something like Satisfactory is very program heavy. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, automation, there's, optimization code, stuff like that. A platform or a genre like that may not be as program heavy. It may be more art intensive. So this may not look like your day if you become a video game programmer, but that's okay. That's what we're doing. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about their days. And obviously this is an oversimplification of what they both do. They do a lot of different programming stuff, but you guys came here to hear what I do. This is my day. So we're going to get into it a little bit, specifically game design and YouTube. And then we're going to spend the next 4 hours talking about accounting because that's super fun. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Before I jump into the higher level stuff, I threw in this slide probably a little early, but that's okay. We're going to talk about planning because I think a lot of people can benefit from planning, especially if they're thinking about doing it on their own. This is something that helps a lot. So we use Jira. It's a tool to help you track your deliverables. And what I mean by deliverables are small little chunks of tasks that you want to get done to build a big project. We split them up by months because it's a more manageable section of time, and we split them up by categories, and those subcategories get put into different, slots. To do, in progress, QA is us, testing to make sure we did it right, and then done. Nobody touches this except for me in terms of creating and, organizing the tasks. The developers move them from left to right when they're done them. A lot of the indie kids that we talk to just wing it. They use Notepad. You can really do whatever you want, but I was very comfortable with this. This is a lot of what I did at Microsoft. Microsoft does not use Jira. They have their own internal system that's like way more complicated. Obviously, when there's 100,000 people, you need it to be a little bit more advanced. This works great for us. And I find the organization for a large project is very important. Now, nobody here, according to the poll, is a professional game developer, so you don't need to go overboard. And, I can answer some of this in the Q&A about what is the highest priority if you really want to start making games. Having organization is very helpful, but there's other things involved as well. This graph, I think, is probably the most important to understand that there's a huge breadth of ideas. And when you're starting out, you can really get trapped into looking into one thing or another thing, or really diving down into the game design without thinking that you need to cover all your bases and get good at everything. Jack of all trades, master of none. So what we do is we really think about the short term, that's the month to month. The long term, this is our roadmap for the entire game that's publicly available. And so we talk about that with the team. I talk about big goals for everybody, so we all feel like we're organized and we know what we're doing. That's a lot of my days to make sure the team feels comfortable with what we're doing. When I propose features, we have discussions with them about what we feel is appropriate. I bring in evidence. I talk to people. I say, hey, would you like this feature? Or I look at data saying people hated this feature. I watch video replays of people getting stuck. I show it to the team. I'm very evidence-based with my day-to-day to make sure that we're actually working on the stuff that is really going to make an impact. Let's talk about a 4-year project. This is something that a lot of developers who are starting out don't get the chance to hear about. So I wanted to highlight this a little bit before we kind of wrap it up. This was the first 3 months. So much stuff happened. It was a glorious 3 months of Atrio. The first month we did market research. We were looking at what is selling. Obviously, we want to be a successful business. We were looking at the Steam top 40 list of that year, of the previous years. We created graphs of what was selling well, and we tried to figure out the different genres, and we picked a particular video game genre that we thought would help us stand out, would help us, be successful. And then we started prototyping. We spent a month building a prototype, and it just came together like snippety snappity, clippity clappity. I just made that up. I don't think that's a real thing. And then we started full production. This is fast. This feels good. The only problem is building a big project is tough. The analogy I use is like building a house. If you are building a shack, a shed in your backyard, you just got to slap together a couple pieces of wood, make it stand. The requirements for it aren't necessarily that complicated. When you're building a house, everything starts to get exponentially more complicated because stuff relies on everything else. It piles up. You need to build a foundation. You need concrete. You need to build, structure. You need a structural engineer. You need to bring in, contractors and other people, expertise that you didn't need for the shack. And without the strong foundation, you can't really build up. So you'll see a lot of people, you hear a lot of people build games really quickly. And from an outsider's perspective, and I'm seeing a lot of non-professionals here, you may see someone put together a platformer. May not necessarily be the same thing as building an automation game. A huge MMO takes 1,000 people over 4 years versus a simple game like Stardew Valley. Well, not necessarily simple, but one person can build Stardew Valley. One person absolutely under no circumstance can build an MMORPG. So there's a lot of misconceptions about each video game and the level of quality, the level of experience that it needs and requires to build it properly. So I just wanted to illustrate just kind of what it looks like to build, I would call us a medium complexity game, especially for a small studio like that. So the prototype phase is just that little itty bitty thing there. Over the next year, we got to a point where we could, be confident with our visuals to show off enough to the public. And that's when we launched our Steam page. Over the next 2 years, we got to early access. And for those of you who don't play video games, early access is like a small little beta release. And here we are now, past year 4. We're ending the project pretty quickly here. Hopefully by quarter 3, quarter 4, we'll be done in 1.0. The game will be done. We'll move on to the next project. Obviously, if you've paid attention to the video game industry, anything can happen. So I don't make any promises to nobody. But the game has really progressed. And these are always fun. I love showing off progress. This is what it started like. So, we lost it. Where did we go? Here we go. You can't pause. Can you not pause? Oh, okay. Oh, you can pause. Okay. So this was the first prototype. This took us maybe a week. Obviously, from an outsider's perspective, you can't really tell. Just the underlying systems that are required to build a prototype is significantly different. But I just wanted to show off the character progression between the 3 months. You can see it's a huge visual progression. And as time goes on, the visual progression is less, even though we've made huge progress over the last 4 years. So this character design has really updated and grown, and it's been very rewarding. Okay. And just to kind of show you what's changed in terms of the automation system, you can see the character, the environment, the story building, all of that has kind of started to come together. Our automation systems look good. They feel more polished. It's a bigger game. It's a fuller game, a richer experience. What's next? Okay, so we're wrapping up. We're getting really close. Let me double check and make sure. Are there any important questions? Before I kind of wrap up, I'd like to answer a couple of questions that I've seen in the chat. I already answered what was my role in Microsoft. This guy wants to record. That's for the admins. What are some of the things that prevent you from delegating some of your responsibilities? The only thing that stops me is technical ability. So I have no problem delegating. In fact, I like delegating. I like doing less work. That lets me do other stuff. But the big thing is like, when I think about our team, I look at it in terms of skill sets. So Kyle has a very particular skill set that he has grown since we worked together. I have grown a very different skill set, specifically around marketing and YouTube and having a talking personality. That's something that I've really grown. And so if I have to focus on the YouTube stuff, I'll try and pass along stuff that I think Kyle can do a sufficient job at. So it's really about effectively distributing the workload in a way that makes sense. And a lot of that comes from understanding what is really, really important, what you're trying to achieve during that month or during that week, or what's important to you as a company, which is a really good segue into the YouTube channel, because I didn't mention that. And I thought I'd lose my voice, so I cut that part out, but I'm feeling okay. So I'm going to talk about the YouTube channel before I get to that one piece of advice. And I'm just going to share my screen here real quick. I'm already sharing it. Oh, look at me go. Okay. This is a bit of a tangent, but it's kind of important and it's kind of a fun story. 2020, great year, fantastic year for the first month until COVID hit. And I'm sure you were there because everyone was there because it was everywhere. After COVID hit, I found myself with way too much free time. Like just, all my social life was gone. I watched the whole Marvel movies, start to finish, in like a weekend. Because like, what else are you going to do? And at that point, after watching all of that, I think I watched How I Met Your Mother in a whole sitting. I mean, you look at your life in the mirror and you're like, I should do something else. I need to find something because this COVID thing isn't going away. So what I did was I started a YouTube channel for 2 reasons. To sell the game, obviously, we're a business. We need to sell the game. but also to practice my ability to talk. Because as the founder of the company, you look at Steve Jobs and you look at big CEOs who are good at presentations, it makes a big difference. You can really influence how people feel about your company. And so I started, and I got to tell you, I was bad. Whew. It doesn't look like it now, but let me tell you, the first video I put out, I literally spent 100 hours working on. I did like 50 takes of the intro, and it was still bad. I messed up a bunch of words. I mean, there's a clip in here. I think I could find it where, let's see. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I'm talking about it. And in here, I'm talking about a feature, and I just left it blank, which is insane. You don't do that. Like, I was talking about springboards or something, and I just forgot to put it in. I'm not even going to show my delivery. If you want, you can go look at it. But we really grew as a channel, and it has benefited us enormously. It's been a lot of work, a ton of work. Holy guacamole. But you spend 2 years in front of a camera, 40 hours per video, and you put out 50 videos or 40 videos, you're going to learn how to talk. It's a very good feedback loop to see how you present, what your voice sounds like. It's, I'm sure if you've ever recorded your voice and listened to it, it's like really weird. You get used to it. Like, I'm okay listening to my voice now, which is kind of funny, because in the beginning I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Jay Alex asked, why do you keep the small team size of 2 to 3 developers rather than looking to expand the team? Even if only by a couple people, it seems that having more hands would mean more people to divide the work, especially if 2 to 3 people are solely programmers. That's a great question. So we've talked about this a bit internally about what we think is the optimal team size. And we think the optimal team size is 5. However, anytime we bring on a new person, it shifts the responsibilities around of everybody. It takes more time away from Kyle if he has to do code reviews of someone else. There's a lead time to bring someone up to speed. There's a lead time for me to learn how to bring someone on board. There's more accounting. It costs more money. And the burn rate, which is how much you spend per month, goes up. So for this particular project, we had a risk tolerance. We set a budget. We were like, we're not going to exceed this budget. We want to make sure that the team or the game does well. And if it does well, then we'll scale up, because financially we'll have more money. It's a safer policy. And I particularly don't mind having a team of 3. This feels like a good size for me. And so we decided to keep it lean. And that way, this gives us time to develop as, people, as professionals, in a pace that makes us feel good. Because if Atrio does really, really well, I personally would feel more prepared to grow. From a leadership perspective, learning this YouTube channel stuff took a long time. And I think if I was managing many people, I wouldn't have as much time to focus on that. And getting those skills, in my particular view, is very important. And so staying small gives me the opportunity to do those things. Now, I don't think I'm going to do this forever. I think the workload is disproportionately set on me when I could be hiring new people, but I can't teach this stuff if I haven't mastered it. I can't bring in new proteges to learn how to edit, to learn how to do voice delivery, if I don't know how to do that stuff myself. And I see a future where social media and influencers have such huge power over what sells and what doesn't. My perspective on doing this after 2 years is that the YouTube channel and becoming an influencer is a very interesting and potentially powerful strategy to being successful as a video game company. And not many people are doing it. There's a couple people who are doing it, and they have found huge success. Obviously, it's crazy challenging. There's a lot of people who haven't done it well and have completely failed, as any endeavor in life. But staying small and lean has been a comfortable experience for us. And I'm happy that we have stayed this small for now. It feels right. It feels good. I'd like to finish the project with our team size and our budget. And then we can reevaluate after the game goes out the door to see how much we sell. So with that being said, I'd like to wrap up the presentation. We definitely went on a tangent, and then we'll get into Q&A. But the one piece of advice is why none of this matters. So let's talk about this before I wrap it up. I've given you a lot of stories, and some of it feels like it's boasting. And as I've gone on in this career, obviously I spent a lot of time thinking about games, looking at other studios, watching other YouTube videos, looking at other channels. And the thing that I've realized, and if you are serious about starting video games, is none of it matters. And I'll tell you why. Your journey is going to be different than everybody else's. Your skill set is different than everybody else's. And what matters most is how you grow. So you may be 16 and someone may be 30. The guys who make a hit video game, maybe they've been doing it for 20 years. You don't really know, and it's impossible to tell. And the most toxic thing that can drag you down in a long-term project, because video games take a very long time, is your mental state and how you compare yourself to other people. And so if you really, really want to succeed in this business, the number one thing I say is don't worry about what other people are doing. Focus on yourself, because everyone's situation is different. And mental health, especially when you're working on projects like this, is very important. It's incredibly important because longevity is a long-term thing. Video games is a long-term thing. I plan on doing this for 30 years. So I've just started. In my mind, I have just started. And so over everything else, how I feel, my motivation, keeping that up is very important. Thanks so much for watching my talk. I really hope you enjoyed it. We're going to answer some questions, but I'm going to let Stefan talk so I can recover my voice because I just barely made it.
My man, Stephen, holy moly, what a talk. Hats off, hats off. I'm going to toss in, where's that clap emoji? We got Len with the clap emoji there. But throw in some claps there for Stephen. Stephen, a pleasure and an honor to have you share those insights, how you went about everything, your journey, your story. So powerful, so motivating. I love it. And while this is still super hot, I'm going to toss in a poll here. We would love to know, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this workshop to others? I published the poll here, 10. Smash that 10 if you enjoyed it and you would recommend to other folks there. But honestly, Stephen, that was amazing. I got so much inspiration from that. It was awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here, Stephen. Feel free to stick around. I'm going to take 2 minutes just to wrap things up before we get into the Q&A session here. But if you are looking to follow Stephen, his company, Isto, his colleagues as well, check out their website, istoinc.com. The YouTube, you got to go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Isto Inc. Or join that wait list for the Atrio game that's coming out, hopefully in this next year. Steam, we'll share the link here in the chat. You should have all 3 there from my colleague Z. But I've already joined the waitlist there, Stephen. You hyped it up so much. It looks amazing. That art is beautiful. Now, for those of you who want to become, Unity developers, designers, whether it's in VR and AR or game development and design, such as the work that Stephen's doing, do check out the XR Development with Unity course. 10 weeks long, beginner friendly. For the designers out there who want to get into VR and AR, interaction design and prototyping for XR, beginner friendly as well. And if you want to, start your own company, build games such as the ones that Stephen showed, that Unity Developer Bootcamp is the one that you want to check out, live and online, 24 weeks long, to get the skills you need to develop and design the experiences that you've seen here today. So again, I did share that we work with a lot of universities as well who deliver these courses and programs. So if you're looking to get the skills to develop and design these experiences yourself, check out the University of British Columbia, University of Toronto, California, Riverside, San Diego, or join us here at Circuit Stream. These are all the links that you can check out there. But, if you have any questions about Unity, about the programs, you just want to have a friendly chat with someone because it's been a long day or, no one else is there, our admissions team is happy to help. Any of these folks you see on the screen would love to chat with you, answer questions, and provide more insights about the industry or how to go about some of the things you want to go. Again, thank you, everyone. Let's open it up for the Q&A session here. Lots of great questions that I saw in the chat. So, Stephen, I'm going to pull up the questions here, and then we'll get rolling on them if that sounds fair.
Sounds good.
Right on. All right, so let's go. I'm going to go by let's go dates. So we've already got the role at Microsoft. Here's one from Kenny. Kenny's asking, what are some of the things that prevent you from delegating some of your responsibilities? You touched up on that. You want to master those skills yourself. Anything else you wanna toss in?
No, I think I answered that one pretty in depth. So let's jump to the next one.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's see. This one's from Sebastian. Sebastian's asking, from what I've seen, indie game developers need to have a range of skills such as programming, marketing, art, design, etc. Do you think anyone can learn to be good at these, or are some people just never going to be good at art, for example?
It's a good question. It's a great question. I firmly believe that you can get good at anything. Now, there's a difference. I think a lot of people, when they're starting out, compare themselves to the best, right? So I use the analogy of basketball. In terms of all the players who play basketball, there's a pyramid, right? The base is like where most people sit. And then as you get up to the top, there's only room for a teeny tiny little group of people. Most of life is not a pyramid, it's a box. So as you get better, there's room for everybody at the top. You're not trying to be a basketball player. You're not trying to be Kobe Bryant. There's only room for like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. But that's, it's a different industry. You don't need to be the number one person, which is like, in terms of mathematics, it is just impossible to be that person. So, when kids are like, I want to be the next Kobe Bryant, you probably should be like, well, you're probably not going to be. But if you're like, I want to be good at art, you can, like, the number of people who can be good at art is so much higher. The threshold to get across that is so much higher. And I'll tell you what, the best thing to do if you're really nervous about it is get a good mentor, find a good teacher. Anybody can learn anything. I truly believe that you can truly get good at something. Being the best at something, I would never tell anybody they can be the best at it unless there's that inherent natural talent. But over my years, I've realized that you can get good at everything. And good enough is good enough for a lot of stuff. You need to be great at probably one or two things in your life. But if you're trying to be good at something, you can do it. It just takes hard work. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. And no, finding a great mentor, someone to learn off of is super key there. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Stephen. Sebastian, hopefully that helped. Let us know if there's anything else you want us to follow up on. This one's from David. David's asking, what's the worst piece of advice you've received and would like to share?
Honestly, I don't really know. I discard most advice that is not great. It just sort of like in the brain, out the brain, and I don't really remember. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember. I'm gonna just pass on this one. I apologize.
David, if it comes to him, we'll let you know. But great question there. I'm curious about it too. We've got another one here from Sebastian. Sebastian's asking, you started developing games while working another job. Would you recommend the same to others? What would you say to people who say becoming a game developer is a risk?
Okay. So I feel very strongly about not giving generic advice. So I'm just going to start with that. Okay. Everybody's situation is always so different. And so I can talk about the best piece of advice. The best piece of advice I have received has been very specific to me and my situation. And so when I give advice, I always say, you take it with a grain of salt. It's customized to me. And so I will talk about my situation and I can't tell you what you did. So I chose to work on games after the job because I found it didn't burn me out. I'm very we all have a certain level of skill sets and you need to assess yourself on what you're really good at. One of my greatest abilities is I have this endurance to work on a project for a really long time. If I'm passionate about it, I'll never lose passion. I can stay focused and I use that to drive our team. And it's another question I saw up there. If I have a team, I bounce off of it and I can stay motivated for an enormously long period of time. So going home and working on a video game didn't burn me out. It energized me. A lot of people find it the other way. So you need to be very careful about where you stand on that. What would you say to people becoming a game developer is a risk? It depends. I mean, if you've mortgaged your home and you're 40 and have 3 kids, I can't give you life advice on whether you should quit your job. You know what I'm saying? But I was a single dude moving in with my parents' basement. I sold my car. I was, I had no expenses. it's a different situation. So my risk was, it was just time. It was just investment. You know, I had lots of savings from Microsoft. I was spending money on internet and a computer, and like COVID hit and I haven't spent any money. Netflix costs $15 a month. You know, I played League of Legends. It's free. My expenses were very, very low. It's just my lifestyle. So I can't give you any advice outside of, you have to look at it on your end. That being said, making video games is expensive. Starting a game studio versus doing it personally is very different. We pay employees, we have salaries. It's a real business. So there is burn rate, there are expenses. And so, yes, of course it's a risk. And yes, if you're really skilled, obviously the risk goes down, but if you've never done it before, the risk goes up. And so it just depends on where you are in life. It's a good non-answer. It's an answer to a non-answer.
I love it. You know, the key thing is that passion, something you're passionate about that you can continue working on, because, you know, the burnout is real for a lot of people out there. But if you are passionate about that one thing, you know, you can push through anything to get to the end there, right? So wise words, my man. I love it. Love it. Thanks, Sebastian. Great question. This one's from Melody. Let me know if you touched up on this as well, Stephen. What advice would you give to a brand new game developer, specifically someone fresh out of high school?
Oh, easy peasy. You want to pick a project that's appropriate. So I tell everybody to make an MMORPG. Just easy peasy. You're either making Red Dead Redemption 3 or you're making an MMORPG. Nothing else. No, I'm kidding. Scope is important. What I tell every young developer is, first, pick something you're passionate about. Decide on what your goals are. If you want to be a professional or you're just doing it for fun, the approach is different. If you're just doing it for fun, you want to make sure you don't get burnt out. Really, really important. People don't talk about this enough. Building a 3-year project takes a lot of work and experience. You need to hone your brain like it's a sword to get through the slogging of months. People don't talk about this. It's very, very difficult if you haven't experienced it, if you aren't mentally prepared, if you don't have a strong foundation, family, support, friends, a good lifestyle, going to the gym and having those routines. People don't talk about this. It is truly a huge factor to how you succeed on a long-term project. And if you're coming out of high school, have a good hard look at where you stand. If you don't have that structure, if you're a little bit nervous about what that is, that's okay. Do a smaller project. Do something, follow a tutorial. Watch, some of the YouTube videos where these guys are making game jams for a week. Those are fantastic because it's a set deadline. It's 1 week game jam. And if you don't know what game jams are, they're these little competitions where you are prompted with a type of game, a genre of game. It's a keyword or whatever, like waves, and you have to make a game about waves. And you have a week. And you're going to fail. Everybody fails. It's not enough time. And that's okay, because it helps you go through each of the steps of making a game in a shorter amount of time. And so I had a coach when I was playing sports, and I'm sure you know about this, but the reason we have coaches is the feedback loop of improvement. So instead of if you're trying to run a triathlon, for example, you could be given an action plan and run for 3 months and then come back. And, the results may vary depending on how well you train. Maybe you decided to run on concrete wearing Crocs. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe you did. And you come back after 3 months and they're like, what the hell did you do? Why did you run in Crocs? The reason a coach is there is it decreases that feedback loop to a minute or 30 seconds. And as soon as they see something doing it wrong, they can help you improve. And so it's like improvement is just the frequency of improvement is so much shorter. And so when you're starting out, doing those game jams lets you do all of the tasks, building a video game, building, art, doing the audio, learning about game design, getting to test a final product, a finished one, and seeing how people react. Actually having to push it out to itch.io, which is a website that hosts video games, seeing people play the game. That whole cycle can be condensed to a week. So it doesn't make sense to do it for 3 years if you haven't done it before, because it's like that feedback loop of sports. You need someone to give you feedback right away until you start to really get a sense of how to make a video game all the way through. Ironically, we did not do that. We did 3 years. But, hey, that's my advice.
You live and you learn. No, that's awesome advice. Hopefully that helped, Melody. Great question. Steven, just wanted to ask, how are you on time?
Good. I think my voice has about 10 minutes left.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. Perfect. So we've got about 10 minutes left here. Quite a few questions to bang through. Did you touch up on the small team size and why? Well, you did touch up on it, so I won't bring up that question again. How do you stay motivated and keep the development momentum going? So we said it's the passion, something to avoid the burnout. So that's from Len there. Let's go Mario. Mario's question here. It's got a lot of upvotes. If you're open to sharing about it, Steven, how are you staying financially afloat while working on the game full time? Savings, investors, other projects?
Yeah. That's a great question. So before I quit, obviously financials was a very, very important thing for me. Doing all of it, burn rates, understanding how long, a projected timeline of the project, how many members we would have, how much that would cost, living expenses, stuff like that. And so the first thing I did was I figured out how much it would cost to make the game, right? Rough estimate. If you're thinking about it, it grossly depends on what kind of game you're making, right? Some games can be built in a month. Some games take 4 years, 500 people. Call of Duty really took 12 years. I mean, they've just been releasing the same game for the last, 15. So I don't look at triple game games. They're like a whole nother world. If you're looking at making games, look at indie games. But the typical projected, cost, if you want to pay yourself like a reasonable salary and pay everyone else, can range anywhere from $100,000 to like $1 million. Think about how much you get paid at work, right? And just pay your, if it's a 3-year project and you make $50,000, it will cost $150,000 to make, right? So the math is pretty straightforward. And so I looked at my financials. I looked at how much I would be spending moving at home versus living elsewhere. Hence the move home. It made a lot more sense. And then we got an investor. Yes, we did. We got an investor to, greenlight the project. Some of it was my money from Microsoft. Obviously, I'd saved up quite a bit. And even at Microsoft, because I was just going home and working, my expenses were pretty low. So I'm just trying to make sure he didn't ask anything else. Yeah. So that was a big thing is I do all the accounting. As time goes on, obviously I don't want to do the accounting, but it's important. I felt like it was important for me to do it while I still had the chance. So if I ever hire, accountants, we can have actual discourse and I can understand about bookkeeping and taxes and all that sort of stuff. And so we typically, I look at the budget every single month. We track our burn rates. We look at the bank accounts. We make sure the income makes sense. We talk to our investor. And we actually had many people approach us, but one particular investor made a lot of sense for us. And I'm not going to go into details about that, but it made a lot of sense for us. And obviously my time at Microsoft helped me, with that initial conversation. People felt a little bit more confident because I had that skill set. So yeah, the whole investing thing is an entirely different talk, but being prepared financially and understanding how much it's actually going to cost and really having a good grasp on realistic budgets was very important. And to our credit, we've done a good job. We've stayed on budget. So
that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, no, that's great news and wise words as well. Great question, Mario. Thanks for sharing, Stephen. I know sometimes it's a little touchy for folks, but really appreciate that. Quick one here from Rob. Rob's asking, are you a Toastmaster, Stephen? I mean, with the speaking, obviously you were able to, sway your way with investors. But he was saying, are you a Toastmaster? Your speaking's great. Though if you are looking for more, look up Toastmasters. He himself is a competent communicator in the program, but he's made a lot of connections through them as well. So some a suggestion from Rob there to check out.
Not a Toastmaster. It's all from YouTube. And to be perfectly honest, I thought about it, but I mean, we're just so busy and it really is about priorities. Fun. I don't really feel super passionate about Toastmaster stuff because I thought about it. I did. And I just decided it'd be more fun for me to continue to make YouTube videos. And so bit of a cop out, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Let's see. Let's see. We got one here from Robert, and Robert's asking, which other programs do you use to support game design? Do you have any sculpting or modeling, software tools that you use?
Oh, baby. Number one, Excel, baby, and QuickBooks for accounting. That's the first one. The least sexiest answer. I'm sure everyone's like, ugh, ugh. The second one is Jira for program management.
Right.
And then I use Illustrator. All of our art is done in Adobe Illustrator. So I do all vector art. We have no 3D in the game, which is kind of crazy. It doesn't look like that, but it is. It's just all, isometric art. We use a one sort of niche program called Spine 2D for our animations. You can animate in Unity. We do a lot of animations in Unity, but we do some in Spine. We use Fmod for our audio. Fmod is really cool. A quick overview is you put in sounds, and it just makes it easier to loop stuff, and you can add effects to it, and it hooks into Unity. So Unity calls Fmod and says, "Hey, I want to loop a bunch of stuff." And Fmod is smart enough to it can mix in tracks and mix in sounds and loop stuff nicely. And so it's just like an add-on onto Fmod. We don't do any sculpting and modeling. Outside of that, Premiere Pro for obviously the video stuff.
Right.
A lot of Premiere Pro. Videos take a long time.
Beauty. Awesome. Hey, great question there, Robert. Thanks for asking that. Gonna hop over to another one here, which might be valuable for those, beginners in the audience that might still be around. This one's from Taylor. Taylor's asking, what free resources would you recommend an aspiring developer who is trying to create on a budget?
I learned everything from YouTube, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. I learned art from YouTube. I learned game design from YouTube. Let me think. Other free stuff. Most of my learning is done from YouTube outside of, once I got better, I started to hire people like experts to teach me stuff. But when I was initially learning, YouTube for everything. That's kind of where I've learned everything.
I mean, it's a great, let's say the second largest search engine on the planet, right? So so many things you can take away from YouTube. So no, great insights there. Let's do another 3 minutes, if that's fair with you. Perfect. This one's actually from one of the Circus Stream team members, Dayon. Dayon's asking, what are some games or developers that inspired you the most to get on the path of game development?
Ooh, I don't know if I can answer this in a small way. We have a whole spiel about Team Fortress 2 and how it was super important for me. So when I was a kid, I played a lot of Team Fortress 2, and that's what actually got me into game development. They had this devlog, which is like this diary that exposes the inner guts of game development, from art to design to programming to game design decisions to staffing and everything. And I just got engrossed with it, and it just ticked these boxes in my head that said, whoa, I didn't know you could do this. And I started reading, and I played the game, and I followed the game and the development, and that really inspired me to start thinking about video games in a different way. And that is ultimately the reason why I started doing game design, outside of the fact that I played a lot of video games. So the biggest influence is just a quick list: Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, PUBG. There you go. Boom.
Counter-Strikes. Yes. Awesome. Great question. Thank you again, Stephen, for the insights there. Let's do another 2-3 questions. There's still so many. So, I apologize for not getting to all the questions here today. But let's see. What's another one that's good for the teams here? This one's from Mario just recently. Mario's asking, how do you think your creative or development process has changed over the past 4 years?
I think the biggest thing that we've been thinking about a lot is, and I always knew this, it was kind of subconscious, but it's gotten a lot better, is being more aggressive about involving players who are completely unbiased to play the game. One thing that we've gotten our asses kicked a lot about the whole development of Atrio has been, we think something's going to work, people touch the game and they play it in a completely different way. And this was like a part of my job at Microsoft. This was like a huge part of my job, was like testing and seeing people interact with stuff. And even still, like after all of this, I thought, I always think like I'm in a good place to master this, and then we always get our asses kicked. And so just being better about understanding how people are going to think. And ironically, the YouTube part of my journey has been very, very helpful for this. YouTube gives you so much feedback based on how people click buttons and like the inner psychology of what works and what doesn't work and what people find fascinating. When you put out a video and it totally tanks, and you put out a video that just like blows up, you start looking at it, you're like, what the hell? Why didn't this work? I thought this was good. And the contrast between the two, once you start to really understand it, it starts to make more sense about how people tick, what people find fascinating, and creatively what engages people's brains more. So I don't know if I answered that great, but it's a very nebulous topic, and I don't really know how to answer that in a good, concrete way.
No, I mean, I find that super helpful. And this question was asked by Mario. Mario, hopefully that helps you. But I do know YouTube does provide, those deep, like psychological insights, why people do what, and getting to those unbiased opinions, even when you're in your development creative process, is super helpful. Beauty. All right, let's do 1 to 2 more questions here. This one's from Rob. Rob's asking, and if we can briefly touch up on it, Unreal Engine, Unity Engine, which one do you use and why do you use it?
We use Unity, and I have never touched Unreal. Haven't even opened it, never downloaded it, so I can't compare the two. We just picked it up. We liked it. We never went back, and we'll probably not switch because we're experts in Unity now. And it's a business decision. It would financially impact us to switch. And from what I've heard from other people, it won't make that much of a difference to swap between the two. They're relatively... at some point you reach a threshold where you can make both work, and most novices are really worried about it, but realistically it's like whatever floats your boat. There's a lot bigger skill sets that you need to master and not focus about the engine, like picking a really good game idea, being able to sell it, telling your friends about it. You'll be surprised that all of those things are so much more important. So
definitely
we don't worry about it too much.
Love it. Love it. Beauty. Awesome. And then let's do one last one here. Just to kind of wrap up the topic, indie game development. You're an indie game creator, studio owner. This one's from Gavin. And, for those who are looking to be indie game developers themselves or start their own studios, what would you say is your average day in terms of hours? Do you have a time you switch off? Are you a mad scientist, working out into the late night? Tell us more about that.
Okay, so this is a touchy subject because we talk about crunch quite a bit. So I'm very, very strict that we start our day at 10 and we finish our day at 6. That's the work hours, and for the employees, they are not expected to work past that. They can choose to, but I'm very clear that like incentives and promotions and stuff, the hours you work after that don't get included, and I discourage them from working on it.
Right.
So, and Kyle's pretty mature. Obviously, he's older. He's had more life experience, and so between the two of us, he's very good about it. One of the agreements as well is, since I'm the founder of the company, I can do whatever the hell I want. So, I am very careful. I typically don't talk about this, but since we've had time to explain context, I don't believe in hustle culture. I don't believe in grinding and like this idea that if you work 14 hours a day, that's the only way to live and all this shit. I do feel strongly about life balance. That being said, my personality lets me work an enormous amount without getting burnt out.
Right.
So on weekdays, I typically work about 13 to 14 hours. So I wake up, I start work, I eat lunch, I do probably a 10-minute walk when it's nice out. In Calgary, it's not nice out very often, so I don't do that very often.
That's true.
I work out 3 times a week, 4 times a week. So I do feel like I work out quite a bit, and then I eat dinner. I usually meal prep everything, so I don't really spend a lot of time cooking. And then I work until typically 1 a.m., 1:30, and then I watch half an hour of TV and go to bed. But I do want to preface that this is a very conscious decision. It's not driven out of addiction or a need to be better. I had a long look at what I wanted out of life and what made me happy and what was fulfilling and my skill set and like my personality. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been working this schedule for over a decade. And so this is a very conscious choice of mine. This is what I wanted to do. This is what brings me great joy. Like the video and YouTube stuff has been like very fulfilling for me. I think about it all the time. And I have a good life. I feel like I have a good life balance between, on the weekends, I make sure that I go and spend time with friends and, social activities. COVID obviously was a little bit different, but yeah, I work a lot, but I never glorify it because it's not for everybody. It can be very destructive if it is not suited to you. And I only do it not because it's necessary, but because it's what I want to do. And it brings me fulfillment. So yeah, I work a ton. That's my short answer.
No, that's great insights. I love how you're actually like really promoting that, 10 to 6, you don't work the extra hours. It's not going to benefit your growth really, but a personal decision for yourself to really work those hours, continue building, creating, designing, developing. Rob loved it. Gavin loved it. Robert as well loved it. So with that, Stephen, I'm going to give your voice a break, my man. You've been chatting for the past hour, if not more. So with that, we're going to wrap things up here. To the people who have still stuck around, thank you so much for tuning in today, even from those around the world. Saleh, I think you're in Saudi Arabia and you're still tuned in here. Thanks so much for joining. To Stephen, the man, the myth, the legend, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing those insights. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And for those of you, again, this is recorded. We're going to shoot out that recording. By the end of the day today, you might be able to find it on YouTube later on. Follow Isto Inc. on YouTube. Check out their website. Join the waiting list. We would love to support them. I hope you all enjoyed this talk today. Catch you on the next Circuit Stream Workshop webinar. We might have Stephen join us again. Hopefully, we'll see. And with that, again, Stephen, couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Have
Take
a great
care,
day.
everyone. Have a good one.